morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. I'm Andrew Heinz, and I'd like to welcome you to ABR Consulting Group's presentation on engineering in the future. The ABR team specializes in looking at the future of engineering across multiple areas of society. To begin, again, my name is Andrew Heinz. I'm currently between careers. Over the last 5 years, I've specialized in data and systems analysis. I currently live in Pueblo West, Colorado. I have a bachelor's in information systems management, a master's in project management, and an executive MBA. Today I'll be presenting to you in the areas of technology, politics, and legal, and how those areas affect engineering. Then I will hand it over to Bobby Parker Turner. Bobby is currently serving as a manager for resolution support for the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. Bobby has worked for the Texas Department of Criminal Justice for 23 years. Bobby has a BA in Political Science and Pre-Law and MBA in Healthcare Management. For our presentation, Bobby will be presenting on how the future of engineering will be influenced by economics and education in our country. Bobby will then hand it over to Ron Newton. Ron is an aerospace engineer manager for the Triumph Group Vought Aircraft Division in Los Angeles, California. Ron has an MBA in engineering management from Dallas Baptist University and attended law school at the Texas Wesleyan University School of Law. Ron has been in the aerospace engineering field for over 30 years. For our presentation, Ron will discuss the socio-cultural topics and how engineering will contribute to the future of our country and our culture. Ron will then conclude the presentation by providing an overall look at the future of engineering and the impacts to our world and our way of life. To begin, let me start with a brief history. The United States is no stranger to the area of engineering. We can look back at examples like the Wright brothers, Henry Ford, and many others on how America has changed the world through engineering. The United States was the first to the moon because of ingenuity and engineering. In recent decades, many other countries around the world have either caught up or in some cases surpassed the United States in engineering realm. The focus of this presentation centers on the future of engineering over the next 20 years and how at ABR we believe the rebirth of engineering will occur in the U.S. Technology. The impacts of technology by the developments in the engineering field are tremendous. Technology has made leaps and bounds over the last 150 years, and it appears it will continue for the foreseeable future. Over the next 20 years, you will see many benefits in engineering. Areas such as energy, genetic engineering, agriculture, transportation, electronics, sustainability, and in all these areas, each will benefit from engineering. When it comes to energy, for example, there is a company called Flibe. That's spelled F-L-I-B-E. Flibe is currently in the process of developing a new liquid thorium-based reactor. According to Flibe's website, liquid thorium-based reactors were originally developed in the 1950s and 60s. The technology, though proven, was terminated in the early 1970s by President Nixon in favor of light water reactors. According to Flibe's website, reactors could power the entire world. The site states that 7,000 tons of thorium could power the entire world for a year. Thorium has in the past been looked at as a product of little value, and often most mining operations have avoided mining it if possible. But in the future this could change as the value of this untapped product grows. Just the thought of reducing billions of tons of coal burned every year would have a huge impact on the CO2 in our atmosphere. In addition, the need to burn other fuels such as natural gas would be reduced, at least in the capacity of electric generation. This could revolutionize the world and provide safe and clean energy for decades to come. And for a bonus, the bonus of these type of reactors is the waste. Liquid thorium reactors would have about 2% of the waste of a light water reactor. The upside of the waste also is that it can be recycled. The waste can be recycled into batteries that NASA can use for long duration spaceflight. There are many other advantages to this technology, and if you'd like to further explore it, please visit flibe.com. That's FLIBE.com. When engineering meets the human body, one other key technology comes to mind: genetic engineering. Genetic engineering has huge implications for the future, touching several areas such as gene therapy, sustainable farming, genetically based medicines, and many others. In an article written by Clifton Anderson about genetic engineering, he discusses each of these areas and the benefits of each. For example, imagine the impact of gene therapy, where, while still in the womb, an embryo with certain genetic markers to certain diseases could be altered, thus developing and producing a healthy baby. The impact of this would not only be a disease-free child, but it could also reduce the long-term health costs associated with lifelong illness. When it comes to agriculture and farming, genetic engineering can help produce what Mr. Anderson calls low-input crops. These low-input crops essentially are essential to producing food in the third world nations. These types of crops reduce the need for expensive machinery, pesticides, and fertilizers. This would help increase production for the local farmers and their ability to produce more food to feed more people on a local basis. In the next 20 years, with the help of genetic engineering, we will see improvements in health and the quality of life of people around the world. We will see smarter and more environmentally friendly ways of producing food, better use of existing farmlands, reduced water usage because of more effective farming practices. The result will be healthier people eating healthier food. This will have a long-lasting impact on the continued human development. When it comes to other types of technology, the world is becoming increasingly connected. Electronic gadgets are everywhere, and the cost of many of these has dropped to the point that nearly anyone in the developed world with a desire to have one can. This trend will most likely continue well into the next century. With the implementation of liquid thorium-based reactors, the world would have excess energy. Technology would become more commonplace around the globe, and the impact of the way we live, the way we choose to govern ourselves, who we trade with, poverty, and many other important areas of global society would be affected. Engineering is and will continue to drive green technologies, which are designed to reduce or often offset, completely eliminate pollution, allowing people to live their lives in a sustainable manner. Now on to the politics and legal behind engineering. For all of the topics that I previously discussed, there will be political and legal implications. In the future, many municipalities will convert using open source technology to support their operations. The legal system will become more efficient, cost effective through the use of open source technologies. Politics and government at large are already embracing alternative technologies to reduce costs and streamline operations. When it comes to the impact of the legal and political system, engineering will be faced with several challenges. In the realm of genetic engineering, there will be an increased scrutiny from both the legal and political systems. The legal system will question the safety and ethical implications to the public. Therefore, we are anticipating resistance in the area of gene therapy. As technology continues to improve, the ability to enhance babies in the womb will begin a battle over the safety and procedures of the long-term impacts of genetically enhanced human beings. Politicians will use this topic to gather votes by lobbying for the rights on one side or the other of the issue. In summary, engineering will play a big role in the future of technology, politics, and the legal system. Engineering will be deeply involved in helping make life more sustainable around the globe. Technology will allow for free flow of ideas, and it will also support the discussions that will occur from all parts of the world. possibilities and potential for the next 20 years will be tremendous. Engineering will support technologies that we have not even yet dreamed up. It will enable advancements in healthcare, through gene therapy and many other related issues. Therefore, from my perspective, the future looks extremely bright. I will now turn it over to Bobby. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. My name is Bobby Turner Parker. I will be discussing engineering education and economic change impacting the engineering industry. Through our research, we have been able to ascertain trends analyzing qualitative studies indicating change that must occur in engineering education to improve enrollment and continue dominance in tertiary education. In 1970, 30% of the world's engineering students were enrolled in American institutions, while 50% of all students enrolled in the world were enrolled in U.S. institutions. Enrollment of engineering students began a downward spiral. By 1990, enrollment in the U.S. dropped by 50%, from 12% to 6% in 1991. From 2001 to 2002, U.S. college enrollment in all disciplines dropped to 14%, which resulted in a decline in engineering students throughout all levels of education in America. College enrollment expands in other countries as international students account for 58.7% of all doctorates. In 2010, research indicates 2.7% of the U.S. gross domestic product was allocated for education. That is more than any other nation. 14 of the top 20 universities in the world are American, as is 14 of the top 20 engineering universities in the world are also U.S. institutions. For some time now, dialogue among engineering deans for U.S. institutions around the country has evaluated the decline in student enrollment. Many of the panels, committees have derived at essential elements that must change in order to provide effective engineering education for future students. The first being pedagogy. Pedagogy must identify methods effective in teaching engineering in liberal arts settings. Structuring of curriculums to reinforce liberal arts, expanding curriculum that prepares student outreach to catalyze change around the world, addressing issues from universal health care to sustainability. Student retention must be improved through the introduction of actual engineering in the freshman year through facilitating student involvement in engineering design, summer internships in other countries, creation of overseas campuses, developing partnerships with institutions and businesses, and embracing internet education. That is truly the wave of the future. The engineering industry experiences impacts as economic change occurs. The most recent recession lasted for 18 months, from December 2007 to June 2009. It has been the deepest recession since the Great Depression. The gross domestic product of the U.S. is more than $14.6 trillion, and China is over $10 trillion, and are number 1 and 2 in the world's economy. Review of the top 10 nations' GDP by contribution sector reflect trends indicating the U.S. decline in industrial sector, which historically has been the most dominant sector of the U.S. economy, and nations such as China, Russia, and India has surpassed the U.S. in that sector. Currently, the U.S. and other developed nations' economic growth is at 3%, while India and China is from 8 to 11%. On a more positive note, the jobs report for April showed decline in unemployment rates from 8.2% to 8.1%, and a gain of 115,000 new jobs, most of which were in the manufacturing sector. and private sector growth has added jobs for the past 26 consecutive months. President Obama has proposed tax incentives that reward businesses for creating jobs in the manufacturing sector, enhancing training, and the insourcing of jobs. Although the U.S. employs 1/3 of the world's scientists and engineering researchers, which accounts for 40% of the world's research and development, significant change has occurred in the North-South trade that traditionally consists of developed nations providing high-tech production and developing countries providing products of less skilled labor. This began with the outsourcing of jobs, the increased growth of high-tech production in developing countries, and the movement of multinational research and development facilities into developing countries. As a result of the increase in the number of engineering countries with high population and low income such as China and India, research provides two significant economic changes that will impact the future of U.S. engineering industry that relates to the abundance of immigrant engineers. The first is reduced earnings in relation to other high-level occupation. The second is less incentive for Americans to enter the job market in the engineering industry. In conclusion, in order to positively improve our future economic issues, the U.S. must prepare for the transition from being dominant in engineering industry to being one of many dominant engineering industrial nations in the world. Such a transition will require the U.S. to reinvent itself by developing new labor markets and new research and development policies, creating ways to garner economic advantage from advances made in other countries in technological and scientific areas. At this time, I would like to pass it on to Ron Newton. He will continue our discussion. Thank you all very much.
Okay, thank you. My name is Ron Newton with ABR Consulting, and I want to talk to you about the social-cultural changes affecting the future of engineering as a vital function within the U.S. and of the world. So I speak to you now, the United States is in the early stages of choosing our next president. Whoever gets the job will certainly influence the nation's political, economic, and national security for future generations. Amid stock market indexes that rise and fall hundreds of points a day, a declining housing market, and unfavorable unemployment ratings, we as Americans have never been more worried about our future or the road ahead. Amongst the most agonizing questions that most American leaders have is, how are we going to maintain competitiveness in a global market? In a report about 5 years ago from the National Academy of Sciences and Engineering, we as a nation were put on notice that our current lifestyle is threatened by falling behind in science, technology, engineering, and math, or STEM. These same STEM factors have powered America's prosperity in the world for the last several decades. In a recent ceremony dedicating the first major assembly delivery for the iconic Boeing 747 airplane from a Triumph manufacturing facility in Hawthorne, California, senior company leader Steve Davis indicated that production of American-made commercial aircraft is still one of the few remaining products where the U.S. exports are higher than the imports.
Steve Davis, Vice President of the Commercial Aerostructure Division, flew in from Texas to acknowledge the crowd.
The aviation industry is the one thing that the United States has that is a mass export that brings money from all over the world into the U.S., and you're part of it.
We've got to keep as much product as we can here in stateside, give our young people the opportunity to build on what we've built.
The Triumph Hawthorne facility has produced 747 fuselage skin panels since the 1960s, and now the newest Boeing version of this American iconic airplane is delivered to international airlines, while the airplane itself is being supported by international suppliers. Unlike the original versions, which rolled out over 40 years ago as a truly made-in-America product, the latest 747 model is supported by engineers and manufacturers from around the world, yet the airplane itself remains a product of American ingenuity. This new role of engineering support teams exemplifies the socio-cultural changes within the engineering industry today, and especially for tomorrow. From a socio-cultural standpoint, I want to now address the values, the beliefs, the demographics, and the lifestyles of population concerning the future of engineers and of American ingenuity. First, starting with values. Engineering values for the future will require due diligence in designing things exact, making them right, and making them last. Engineering values are the core of all engineering practices. It's knowing that the engineering outcome will affect families driving in cars or passengers flying on airplanes or even medicine given to infants. Engineering values start with the responsibility of the individual and it extends into the entire engineering community. Beliefs. Engineering beliefs for our future must take us to beyond the status quo. Just simply thinking outside the box keeps us even with competition. What do we believe the next great leap in engineering is? Some say any idea can be designed in the near future. Knowing what the future environment will likely entail sets the stage for engineering beliefs that will support growth, technology, especially to the next level. What challenges will our engineers be faced with 20 years from now? Well, these answers are the challenges that we want our upcoming engineers to believe that they can address to support the needs of the next several decades. It'll extend beyond our imagination if we believe it can be done. Engineering demographics. The National Action Council for Minorities in Engineering believes the solution to America's competitiveness problem is to activate the hidden workforce of young men and young women who have traditionally been underrepresented in engineering careers. Their message for the future of our engineering industry is to increase the engineering interest of young men and young women who have traditionally been underrepresented in engineering assignments. Lifestyle of population. Our lifestyle is essentially who we are. Our habits, beliefs, morals, and financial status combine to manifest how we choose to live our lives. Our lifestyles now show a growing pattern of outsourcing and offshoring pursued by American industries primarily for economic reasons. Our lifestyles allow low performance of our nation's middle schools and high school students in math and science as compared to their peers in other developed countries. Our lifestyle of population indicates a shortage of native-born engineers that has led to an increased need to import talent from other countries. Understanding the general lifestyle trends of a population can allow society to better itself. As the lifestyles of the population changes, the engineering industry needs to change. Learning about the future environmental surroundings of the engineering industry based on lifestyle changes and looking at the engineering industry in a broader context provides an emphasis that can be placed on influencing these same lifestyles going forward. Okay, thank you very much. In conclusion, I want to recap the 4 steps that ABR Consulting has taken to develop our strategic plan and our recommendations for the future of the engineering industry. Step 1, we picked the engineering industry as a needed entity required to not only survive but to thrive over the next 20 years. Step 2, we defined focus areas on how best to recognize future trends and, more importantly, what to do about it. Step 3, we performed an environmental scan relating to political and legal changes and technological changes as presented by Andrew, economic changes and educational changes as presented by Bobby, and socio-cultural changes as presented by me, Ron Newton. And finally, step 4, we've reported our findings in this video, which includes recommendations that best prepare the future of the engineering industry in a global market. Thank you very much for your time, and please do not hesitate to add to this learning opportunity or to ask questions later. Thanks.